Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today, we are doing our second live stream of the day here, and we are really taking a dive into NFL free agency. Since the last live stream video, we've had a couple of quarterbacks sign. Jacoby Brissett to Miami, Andy Dalton to the Chicago Bears. Those are some of the bigger ones. Austin, what else has been going on in free agency after the other live stream ended today? Anything big worth noting?
Justin Hardy just signed with the Jets. I don't know if you saw that. That's not a huge move, but that is a depth piece for the New York Jets moving forward at that cornerback position. Also, Derek Wolfe with the Baltimore Ravens, so that is something that's worth noting. Baltimore's been pretty busy re-upping some of their guys along that defensive line. So to be quite honest, I think they're doing a nice job retaining some of those pieces and moving forward with that. Malcolm Brown signed with Miami at the running back spot, so that is also a little noteworthy. Let's take a look at Janoris Jenkins, signed 57 minutes ago with the Tennessee Titans. So I do want to address this, and maybe we should wait until a few more people get into the stream, but can we please talk about Dory Jackson? What was that? I really don't understand what Tennessee was doing at that point. So kind of interesting at this point. Let's see if anything else has happened since you guys ended that live stream last.
Jay Anderson, welcome to the stream. Welcome everyone that is coming into the stream right now as we're doing it. We appreciate all the support here at Utility Sports. You guys have been absolutely killing it the last couple of days. Let's keep that up moving forward here on the channel. Brandon Verdon asks, who do you think the Raiders get next? Austin, what do you think of the Raiders offseason so far and some of the guys that they could still look to target here, maybe at that cornerback or safety position?
Yeah, I think that is actually very interesting to bring that up. I was just going to mention Desmond King is an option still. I think his market is pretty fluid at this point. There's going to be a couple of teams, kind of dipping their toes in the water to see what Desmond King is going to covet. Obviously, I think he can do. He can corner, can play safety. He has quite a bit of versatility in that secondary. So for me personally, Desmond King is a big name to watch for the Raiders. I think that is a realistic option that they could go for.
Yeah, I would really like that there. Him landing in Las Vegas would give them a little bit of versatility in that secondary. And that brings us to the Tennessee Titans here. Rainbow Needle's asking if J.C. Horn is a real possibility to land in Tennessee. J.C. Horn kind of going to become a coveted name as the third cornerback in this draft. What do you make of the Tennessee Titans situation with them cutting a Dory Jackson today? Also moved on from Desmond King earlier on in the offseason.
Oh, another guy to note in that is Malcolm Butler's gone. So
yeah, true.
Again, we are seeing an entire cornerback room turnover, and that is something that you don't see often. We actually saw that with Minnesota not too long ago with letting go of Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes. That whole corner room pretty much turned over, and we saw the disaster it was this season. Obviously, these rookies did not have a lot of time to adjust during the OTAs training camp. I mean, there wasn't much for those rookies to do, and it's very tough to play the cornerback position as a rookie. And we saw the Vikings really pay for it. So we'll kind of see if Tennessee can do a better job bringing in a better mix of veterans rather than all rookies. But for Tennessee, I think that they do need to look to bring in another guy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think J.C. Horn would be an interesting grab for them, but possibly J.C. Horn could be off the board at that point. Maybe you have to see Tennessee reach. We've been talking edge on the channel quite a bit for them. They went and addressed that with Bud Dupree last night in free agency as well. What's your thoughts on the Bud Dupree situation there in Tennessee, Austin?
Wow, I can't believe that he had signed that contract. That was my very first thought, especially coming off of a torn ACL. We do not know what Bud Dupree will look like. So, to be quite honest, I was very, very shocked.
Yeah, right. That is the biggest question mark for them moving forward is what kind of production are you going to get from Bud Dupree? Confidence here, someone who's been in the stream the last couple of days. Thank you again for hopping in here. He says, been real quiet in the last 30 minutes here of free agency. Some teams are still working. We haven't seen the big wide receivers go off the board. Those are going to be the guys really to have our eyes on. Trent Williams, he's still out there too, right, Austin?
Yep, Trent Williams is still available. The wide receiver market has picked up a little bit just because Marvin Jones signed. That was a big-time free agent signing for Jacksonville. I actually really like signing. That's the first move that I thought was a positive for them. Obviously, they got Griffin at the cornerback spot, but for them getting Marvin Jones at that price, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. And now we see the Seahawks actually making a move as we speak here. They're addressing that cornerback departure of Shaquille Griffin. They're bringing in former 49er Akello Witherspoon. He had struggled a little bit over the last couple of years. He's a guy who had been playing as that number 2 corner, got replaced by Jason Verrett there previously. What do you think about Akello Witherspoon to Seattle as that's breaking news as we speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think Seattle felt compelled to make a move there. You can't just let Griffin go and not replace him. So obviously they made quick action and went ahead and got Witherspoon. So I think that is a good signing for them. I do want to see, what was the money on that? Did you say what it was?
There is no money out on that quite yet. Trayvon here, Yelka, if I pull up here, I will send you a link. We're not going to be in here very long. I do have some prearranged plans after just a little bit here, but I will send you a link. Detroit Lions Talk with Micro Mike says, what's up? Absolutely great channel. Thanks for stopping in, Micro Mike. Awesome to hear from you. Hope you are doing well.
Man, hey, we got your boy, though, Marvin Jones, Micro Mike. What do you think?
Sid and C here also says, when do you think the Seahawks will make their first move? Well, they just made it with Akello Witherspoon. Austin, what else could you see for Seattle moving forward as I send this invite to Trayvon?
They really have to go get edge. I think that it was pretty clear and obvious that with the whole Carlos Dunlap thing, it didn't work out. Obviously, it didn't take very much to go ahead and get him from Cincinnati, but Carlos Dunlap did not work out there clearly. You know, I would not be completely ruling out a Jadeveon Clowney reunion. I think that is something that very well could happen. There was thoughts about him possibly going back to Seattle, but obviously he chose to go to the Tennessee route. That is something I am not completely ruling out at this point.
That would be an interesting reunion there. Jadeveon Clowney, his market's probably been a little bit slower, especially with some of the other pass rushers on the market, guys like Yannick Ngakoue, Trey Hendrickson that did get deals. Jay Anderson Jr. here asking about the Detroit Lions. He says, do you think the Lions can get a big name player? At this point, there's not a lot of big name players left on the board, and the ones that are probably aren't considering the Detroit Lions just with the whole situation going on at quarterback with the wide receivers that are there. I don't think a lot of them are lining up to go play with Jared Goff. What do you think, though, Austin?
Yeah, I think the one, quote, big name that's still out there that they very well could go after is Juju Smith-Schuster, just considering that their wide receiver room is completely turning over for the most part. And especially at the top two, I think Juju could be an interesting addition. He could get paid like a number 1 wide out there. I am kind of curious to see, what is their salary cap situation. I'm going to pull that up on Over the Cap. I don't know if you've been keeping up with Over the Cap, and recently they have actually put out the current salary cap space for each team updated, which is pretty good. Right now, the number 1 team is the New York Jets with $51 million. Also, Jacksonville has $51 million, followed by the Colts at $41, Washington at $37, New England at $33, and to round it out, Denver at $32.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing.
So that is kind of what we're looking at for the teams that could be big spenders down the stretch. Obviously, I think that it is pretty.
Here we are. Welcome, Trayvon, Chris Robertson, a special guest here on the channel. Welcome back into the stream. Again, he's been absolutely killing the game for us. Expert Ivy says, how would you rate the Bengals free agency so far? Personally, I would say a B- or a B. They did lose Carl Lawson, replaced him with Trey Hendrickson. Austin, what would you think about Cincinnati and their offseason up to this point? Also brought in a couple cornerbacks in Mike Hilton and Chidobe Awuzie today as well, 2 of the bigger moves that they have made at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they've had a B offseason. They've lost some pieces. They've brought some pieces back. Obviously, paying Hendrickson that much is, it's a little scary. You're ultimately, when you are paying him, you are looking at a projection, and you're hoping you're going to, see continued growth. He had sack numbers this season. I think, did he total 14 on the year? Had a really solid season overall. But at the same time, you have to be wary of those guys that make that quick jump like that. Obviously, Shaq Barrett had one that mention, but obviously, I think Cincinnati has had a pretty interesting offseason. I think B is a very, very fair grade for that.
Yes, definitely. Burger Does Sports says he joined a little late, but hello, Akello just joined the Seahawks. Hey, no worries, Burger Does Sports. Would love to have you in here. Thank you again for joining the stream. Craig Smith here saying Dory Jackson has to be the guy for the Chargers. Chance for him to head back home to LA. Trayvon, would you be interested in Dory Jackson coming to the Chargers, or do you think having Michael Davis kind of shuts that down?
No, I don't think that shuts it down at all. I think that it's a very good chance that he could end up in LA. But breaking, Emmanuel Sanders is going to the Bills.
Okay, so the Bills look for that trio of wide receivers. I know that's something we've been talking about here on the channel, how they're going to be in the market for a third wide receiver, whether that's through the draft or free agency. And it sounds like Emmanuel Sanders, the veteran option who got released by the New Orleans Saints, is going to fill that void there in Buffalo. Austin, what's your initial thoughts on this move as it comes in as breaking news?
Yeah, I mean, the whole John Brown departure, we figured this was going to happen. You're going to have to bring in a guy very, very similar. Emmanuel Sanders is going to fill that void temporarily. Kind of curious to see on the money term on that. Overall, I think that is an okay move for Buffalo. You're very competitive right now, and bringing in Emmanuel Sanders definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely like that. And Aiden here is asking, what are the Raiders doing? They've cut or move on from 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. They brought in Yannick Ngakoue yesterday. However, they've got a lot of work to do on that defense, especially that secondary. And now they've opened up some vacancies at the offensive line spot. Austin, Trayvon and I have talked quite a bit about this so far in the live streams. What's your thought on Las Vegas and their moves today?
I don't really understand it. I'm not really sure the direction they're going. I mean, they've had several Pro Bowlers along that offensive line, and yet they want to rebuild it. I don't think that's where the issues were really lying with this team. I really saw that as actually one of the strengths of that team was the offensive line. But you have to look now to the secondary with LaMarcus Joyner being gone. Like I had mentioned prior, I think a guy like Desmond King makes a lot of sense for this Raider team. He can play corner. He can play safety. He's very, very versatile in that sense. So that is definitely something that the Raiders need to monitor.
Most definitely. John Russell here asking about your Jacksonville Jaguars, Austin. He says, should the Jags grab Zach Ertz? That would be something I would love to see. I think he would be the perfect blanket option for Trevor Lawrence, someone who you can count on being a reliable target through the middle of the field, someone who's going to be able to run those 8 to 10-yard curl routes. Also gives you a little bit of upside after the catch. Well, what do you think about Zach Ertz and his possible chance to going to Jacksonville, Austin?
Yeah, I think for Duval County, you're really wanting to see a tight end, and whether that's through the draft or free agency. Clearly now free agency is not the way to go. You have to look at the trade market. There's 2 guys that come to mind, Zach Ertz being the first one. The second one's David Njoku. David Njoku is a higher upside tight end. However, you are going to have to pay him relatively soon. And honestly, I'm not sure if this 1-year trial period is enough to really make that determination if he's going to be a long-term fit. And then you're going to have to figure out a whole payment plan for him. So I'm not super keen on that route, but I would rather have the true commodity in Zach Ertz. You know exactly what you're getting with him. He's arguably the 3rd best tight end in the league. You can make that argument, not saying he is, but he is in that kind of realm, anywhere from 3 to 5, in my opinion. So all it's going to take probably is a 5th-round pick. I think that's what the comp's going to kind of look like.
That would be an extremely good grab for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I also think my New York Jets should be in on that type of deal. We badly need to address the tight end room. Zach Ertz would be a great way to do so. Burger Does Sports has a prediction here saying that Denver is going to get William Jackson or Jayon Brown coming tonight. We'll see which way Denver really does go with the moves. Trayvon, if Denver doesn't get William Jackson or Jayon Brown, where are some landing spots for the cornerback and also the linebacker there, Jayon Brown?
I think there's a couple spots of teams that need cornerbacks. You mentioned the Raiders are in need of a cornerback. They're in need of everything defense. And it seems like they have some cap room. The 49ers are kind of out of play now. I think the Titans, with the addition of losing Dory Jackson, releasing him, are now in the market for a tight end. They also got rid of they also elected not to bring back Desmond King. So there's a couple of teams out there. I think the Chargers are still a team that is looking for a veteran cornerback as well. But I think they'll go more towards like a Troy Hill type player that fits their scheme from Brandon Staley's previous team.
Yeah, definitely. That does make a lot of sense there. Thank you, Trayvon. Merlin here, welcome back to the stream. He says, what do you feel about Dalton to the Bears? Is it good? Let's remember, guys, please don't spam so we can get through all the comments as we're going through. But I think it's a pretty solid grab. I think he's a slight improvement over Nick Foles into that Matt Nagy system. However, at the end of the day, I don't think it's much of a game-changing transaction throughout the NFL. I think he's a slight upgrade, but other than that, it is not a lot more going on here. Let's move on to this right now. He says, how does New England still have $33 million after all those guys they signed? That's because of possible ways to manipulate the cap and how you can address cap hit in year one of some of those contracts. Just because a guy's getting $36 million over a few years doesn't mean he's getting, that exact amount of money per year. There could be year one where he gets only $4 or $5 million. Year two, you could load that up with $12, $13 million to kind of adjust how the cap hit functions. Austin, is that kind of what's going on there in New England with some of these deals?
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people are shocked to see that they do have so much money still available. Also, Jacksonville's kind of in that same way. How are they still tied for the league lead in cap space? Like you said, it's the manipulation of that first year, and you're going to see a lot of these contracts swayed in a way where they're able to still bring in quite a few guys on this year one and still have quite a bit of space. So at that point, that is why you are seeing that. That's what people have to understand. It's not it's not all concentrated in that year one. Sometimes they do a really good job backloading it too. There's a lot of different things that you can do to create some short-term cap space.
Most definitely. Also today, we've had a little bit of movement on the quarterback rooms. Andy Dalton being one of those guys we just talked about with the Bears. Jacoby Brissett goes to Miami. Tyrod Taylor leaves LA for the Houston Texans. That's an interesting one to me. What's your guys' thoughts on some of those moves going on at the quarterback position? Either one of you could jump in. Yep.
Well, I think it's super interesting, at least the Tyrod Taylor signing for sure, because when you think about it, obviously they have Deshaun Watson still, and this is just not looking good for them in terms of they having to get an insurance policy pretty much, and they got him on the cheap. It's a pretty heavy incentive deal, so it'll be good in that aspect. But it's definitely remains to be seen. They say that Deshaun Watson's their guy, but yet we've seen nothing to suggest that they would like to keep him around.
Most definitely. Austin, what's your thoughts there on the whole Deshaun Watson situation and everything that we see going on surrounding him?
Yeah, so for Deshaun Watson, I think that a deal is definitely going to get done. The Texans have been talking about how they are going to hold on to him regardless. I don't see that to be true. However, I do want to jump to the Texans quick with the whole Tyrod Taylor thing. I think it's a very interesting move. Obviously, if you want to still kind of field the team here, after you move on from Deshaun Watson, it is very, very important to still have a quarterback in place to further develop your offensive pieces that you have. I'm not exactly sure what direction the Texans are trying to head in. Obviously, they need to be in deep rebuild mode as soon as they move Deshaun Watson, but I'm not exactly sure. However, Tyrod Taylor, that signing makes a lot of sense. The signing that doesn't make any sense to me is the Andy Dalton signing to Chicago. I am not a fan of that one. I think Andy Dalton is a very, very good backup quarterback. I don't see him as a true starter in the league. I don't think you going from Nick Foles to Andy Dalton is the real move there. If you are truly looking to improve, if you feel like you're a borderline playoff team, I don't think that's the move you need to make to push yourselves towards the postseason.
Yeah, ultimately, like I said, Andy Dalton's not going to really move the needle for a lot of different NFL franchises. Welcome, everyone, to the stream. If you guys are just joining us, hit that subscribe button if you are new to Utility Sports. We really appreciate all the support you guys have been showing us through free agency. It's been an awesome start to free agency. We still have some big-time names out on the market. Wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, tackle Trent Williams are two of the biggest names. This is the place you want to be to keep up with all the NFL news. Here, Jacob Ross getting a little hopeful as a Jets fan says, Deshaun to the Jets after the signings of Tyrod, Dalton, Fitzmagic, and Brissett. I'm going to tell you right now, those signings play zero factor into any Deshaun Watson trade. Miami's not going to go, oh, we have Jacoby Brissett. Let's not pull the trigger on Deshaun Watson anymore. Those deals right there aren't going to be that important when it comes to where Deshaun Watson ultimately lands. And don't expect Deshaun Watson to get moved any day soon here. It's going to be at least a month probably until we see any real possibility of that heading up into the NFL draft. There's no reason for the Texans to pull the trigger on something now. The season's a long ways away yet. The draft's still about a month away. They have some time to be patient there. What's your thoughts on that, Austin, with the whole Deshaun Watson situation? Do you have a team that you think will land him over some other teams?
Yeah, I think Carolina's the true fit. Carolina's been relatively quiet this entire offseason. We have not heard a lot out of Carolina. I think they're kind of conserving cap space, getting ready to make that move. I think we could ultimately see Teddy Bridgewater go back to the Houston Texans. But now with the Tyrod Taylor thing, I don't think that really makes a lot of sense for Teddy Bridgewater. So what they're going to have to do is ultimately cut Teddy Bridgewater and absorb that cap, or they're going to have to move him or reroute him another direction.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to monitor. Maybe that's a way that they feel they can pick up assets. We know New Orleans really liked Teddy Bridgewater enough to trade for him from the New York Jets originally, then didn't work out there. He went and got his big-time extension or a big-time contract with the Carolina Panthers, but he did look good with the New Orleans Saints when he was there. Maybe if this whole Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill situation doesn't work out for New Orleans, that could be a potential landing spot once again for Teddy Bridgewater. That'll be something worth monitoring. Josh says, so the Patriots have obviously jumped on all these guys because they know how the cap will raise next year post-COVID, and then they'll cut rework as needed then. Yeah, that's probably how they'll go about it if they do need to. This year, the cap did tighten quite a bit, kind of hurt some of these other teams. The Patriots have went through this in a really, really good way for them, but at the same time, you have to remember their quarterback is on a deal with a base salary of $5 million. If they were paying a real elite quarterback, the north of $20 million that these kind of guys, get on the market, at least $20 million, it would have tightened up some of their ability to make some of these moves. They wouldn't have maybe had room for a guy like Hunter Henry. And that's kind of what you're seeing now is since they have a cheap quarterback, they're going out making some moves. Austin, what's your thought on Cam Newton and his fit with those new tight ends that he's got there in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry?
Yeah, I mean, if we look historically, Cam Newton has not, utilized his tight ends a ton. And Greg Olsen had a couple of nice years there, but overall, I mean, he couldn't. Him and Ian Thomas, that didn't really gel when that was happening. Just not super relevant. But now that you have two, above average tight ends, I think that they'll have a little more success in the red zone. Obviously, a little place that they did struggle last year, not having that true red zone threat at the tight end spot or even at the wide receiver position. So a lot of times, I think that that was kind of hurting them. Jonnu Smith, really good red zone target. So I think that bodes well for him. I do want to address some of the stuff in the chat here. Who do you think the Vikings will sign? I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to sign Mackenzie Alexander. I do believe that he is going to be the target right now. They've actually already offered him a contract. They're just waiting to hear back from him. I think just with how familiar he is with the Minnesota Vikings defense, Mike Zimmer, I think I could see a reunion with those guys. Also, we have been seeing Pat Pete, and there is a potential re-sign. Not sure on the validity on that, but
yeah, he just tweeted out that it was just a picture that he liked, and
he tweeted this picture of himself there in Arizona during free agency, and then says 7 minutes later, just a dope picture. Probably not the best thing to do during the heart of free agency. All these fans getting pretty excited. I mean, J.J. Watt announced his travel to Arizona with a picture of him wearing Cardinals gear. Now, Patrick Peterson kind of trolling fans a little bit with that up on his own Twitter. Merlin Jabarish asked about Keanu Neal, his possible fit with the Minnesota Vikings. He could be a good grab there. I do think that they will be looking at safety. Anthony Harris is a free agent. He'll probably be a little bit out of their price range. And that's really the player I want to focus on, Austin. What do you think about Anthony Harris, where he could land? I know you like him and what he brings to an NFL roster.
I think he's a really good cover guy, not so great as a tackler, but I do want to quick address Keanu Neal. I think that's a phenomenal fit. I have been hearing a lot of Neal to the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings have said they are going to have a safety at the end of free agency, whether that be bringing Harris back, whether that be getting Neal. I think overall they're really set to go and get a guy like that in that caliber. Neal is a really interesting fit. Obviously, has fought injuries quite a bit, but for a guy that couldn't catch a break, hopefully he gets a nice contract with the Vikings.
Yeah, when he is healthy, he is a very, very good safety too in the NFL. I think that the injuries kind of have played a part on his limited market at this point. Rivet Gaming asked, do you think the Patriots will still go out and get a wide receiver or stay there with the 2 tight ends? Austin, what's your thoughts on New England and their whole situation as it plays out?
Yeah, because obviously they brought in Nelson Aguilar. They brought in 2 tight ends. Are you guys still able to hear me at this point?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, I could see them signing a lower tier free agent. I don't think they're going to go after a bigger name in that sense. I could be wrong on that front, but they like a couple of their guys. They have Julian Edelman, they have Jacoby Myers, and now they have Aguilar. There's a couple of guys like Nikhil Harry that could be on their way out. I think there is a trade market currently for Nikhil Harry. They have been shopping him. So I'm going to flip this to you guys. Where do you see Nikhil Harry going?
Wow, that's a great question. I think a team that's going to be interested in Nikhil Harry myself is the Detroit Lions. I think that they're going to be looking for pass catchers all over the place, wherever they can find them, guys with high upside. Nikhil Harry being a former first-round pick, I think he's a guy that Detroit's going to want to work with. And also, Detroit and New England have been in trade talks in years past. Remember, they were focused on trying to get a deal with Rob Gronkowski done. Obviously, they've had some front office turnover, but still, those lines still exist there between Detroit and New England. Trayvon, any teams jump out for you for Nikhil Harry?
I did not even know that he was a free agent.
Trade.
Are they trading him? Oh, I mean, when you think about teams that need a wide receiver, we're gonna go down the list here. Maybe the Jets, but it's interdivision trades don't really happen like that. I know the Colts aren't really looking for a wide receiver because they just get tendered. Maybe Washington. I think Washington, we've said all day, like Washington should be in the running for Kenny Golladay without a doubt. And especially with Marvin Jones off the board, now they might be pressured to get it moving and go get a wideout. The Dolphins maybe, but again, divisional trades don't really happen that much. Maybe the 49ers, the 49ers are looking for, I'm sure, like Trent Williams is number one priority, but if they don't get that, I really think that they will push that money towards upgrading the offense in any way they can, and getting another pass catcher might be the way.
Yeah, Trent Williams, one of those big dominoes yet to fall. I think that he's kind of causing a little bit of a logjam right now. Once he makes a decision, that could open up some money for other teams, perhaps the Indianapolis Colts. They've been quiet. They've been sitting on $41 million all offseason long. They have not pulled the trigger on anything yet. I think that they are probably in the running for Trent Williams, trying to get a deal done there, but San Francisco isn't going to budge either. Both want him long-term. Jamari, welcome to the stream, one of our best subscribers. He is constantly in our videos, leaving comments, leaving likes, doing all those great things. And he says, why are the Patriots and Jaguars going crazy in free agency while other teams are silent? To be completely honest, these two teams had 2 of the top 3 most cap space coming into the offseason. So that's a big reason why. And the other reason is both of these teams had severe needs. Jaguars had really big needs on both sides of the ball. New England had serious offensive needs, especially that tight end position, that wide receiver position. Bill Belichick spending his stimulus check and some more on the offense there this offseason. Austin, what's your thoughts on New England and Jacksonville and how they're both going about this offseason?
I mean, they're going about it the same way. Obviously, I think Jacksonville just had a dire need to fill out a roster. I mean, there was a lot of players like Glenn Maven and players like that were getting quite a bit of run this season. And obviously now they're having to reconstruct their defensive line, which has been a main focus. New England all around have just been looking for bigger free agents, just trying to make their roster more talented as a whole. They've done a nice job of that. And now I kind of want to direct our attention for all of us here, and where do we think Kenny Galladay's best free agent match is? Not necessarily the team that we think is the most likely, but who do you think is the best match of the teams that currently have sufficient money? And I will once again read off the teams that have enough money to sign him: Jets, Jaguars, Colts, football team, Patriots, Broncos, Dolphins, Chargers, Panthers, Titans, Bengals, Niners, Raiders. That's kind of the list right there.
To me, it's got to be a Washington football team. I think that they are in a position now with Ryan Fitzpatrick where you could look at Terry McLaurin really shining statistically there, but bringing in another wide receiver threat, someone who Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be able to throw the ball up to, in Kenny Galladay, a bigger frame wide receiver, someone who's going to function as a red zone threat as well. We've seen him do that there in Detroit. I think that the best situation for him is probably Washington at this point. They badly need offensive help, and he could bring it to them. And I think he'd get a pretty good payday as well. Let's say you, Trayvon.
I think, again, it's Washington, and I wasn't just saying that, again, to just say, well, this is it really is, I think, is the best fit. I think it allows him to, I think it really allows him and Terry to not have to feel the pressure of being a number one and being like they both take the heat off of each other. And now you have a competent quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick who's not afraid to stretch the field and go take chances. And you really have a chance for that offense to really rejuvenate it, and keep it up to par with the defense, because we already know the defense is playoff winning, more than capable of winning a playoff game on its own right. But now you just need that offense to just keep up to speed. You know what I mean? And I think that the team really reminds me of the Jets back in the day. They just really need that game manager. And I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick can be that person for them. But yeah, Kenny Galladay's best place, in my opinion, is Washington for sure. I think that it's a match made in heaven.
Most definitely. Austin, with your fresh eyes on the situation, what say you on Kenny Galladay?
Yeah, for me, I'm a big advocate. I think Washington is a really, really good fit. I think him and Terry McLaurin are very dangerous weapons for Ryan Fitzpatrick or whoever they bring in at the quarterback position. But I'm going to direct my eyes over to the Indianapolis Colts. I think since T.Y. Hilton has not been signed, they need a go-to guy, personally. And I think they're looking for a true red zone threat. They don't have that at the tight end spot. They need one at the wide receiver position. Carson Wentz, historically, we saw what him and Alshon Jeffrey were together for the time they spent in Philly. I love the pairing between the Colts and Kenny Galladay.
That would be an interesting grab there for Indianapolis. At some point this offseason, they will have to figure out something in that wide receiving room. Could be Juju Smith-Schuster. I think they could also be a team looking at Curtis Samuel. There's a whole bunch of different ways Indianapolis could go. They're one of my favorite teams to keep an eye on as we move forward throughout free agency. They've got the money yet to make a whole bunch of moves if they want to. It'll be interesting to see how they go about it moving forward. Let's see here. What else do we have? Robert Lamison, welcome to the stream, one of our best subscribers as well. He's constantly commenting on our live streams. Welcome to the stream, Robert.
You know who Poona Ford is?
Poona Ford, yeah, the D tackle.
Yeah, he's going to sign with the Seahawks.
Okay, so Poona Ford going to the Seattle Seahawks.
That a 2-year deal.
2-year deal. Okay, so that is a pretty good grab for Seattle. We see them starting to make a couple moves later on today after losing Shaquille Griffin earlier on. Andy Hernandez says, enjoying the live stream. Thanks for putting out good content. Keep it up. Really appreciate that, Andy. That means a lot to us here at Utility Sports. We are glad that you guys are enjoying the content so much. It's a lot more fun to make it when you guys are loving it and you guys are giving us good comments, good questions. So continue asking these great questions in the chat as we go about it. Ja says, so as a Jets fan, I was somewhat expecting the Jets to be more active and creative in their cap manipulation, like what the Patriots are doing. Well, at this point, you've signed two guys over $12 million annually, so you have been pretty active. You signed two big-name free agents in Carl Lawson and Corey Davis, both two younger guys. Austin, looking at the Jets, what else could you look at them doing moving forward here the next couple days or so?
Yeah, so for Jets fans, I think the key word here is patience overall, because they also brought in Jared Davis is another name that we do have to remember. I think somebody in the comments have even said that too. But for the New York Jets, I think there needs to be improvement all across the roster. Obviously, I think at the cornerback spot, that is something that they're going to need to have some more depth at. So for the New York Jets, you got to get some more secondary help. You need to do kind of what Jacksonville started on day one with and fill in some of the depth pieces. That's what Jacksonville addressed early on. I think that's kind of where the Jets need to, move their eyes to. Also get another linebacker in addition to a guy in the secondary or two. So for the Jets, also another rotational offensive lineman as well as what I could see in the cards.
Right, yeah, the Jets have a lot of moves to make, but do not worry that they're not necessarily making them on day one or day two here of open free agency. Remember, we haven't even started officially signing contracts yet. There is a lot of time and a lot of talented players still out on the market. A team wasn't built in one day. you have to be a little patient with these things. Joe Douglas has a lot of work to do in building this roster up, but he's doing some of the right moves as we go. Diehard Bengals fan says, why won't people stop talking about Carl Lawson with a sad emoji? Yeah, I understand that you're sad, but you did bring in Trey Hendrickson on a pretty nice deal, 4 years, $60 million. And he's a guy who could have massive upside at that edge position. Austin likened some of his jump to somewhat what we saw with Shaq Barrett, kind of how he exploded with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not necessarily that he is Shaq Barrett, but some of these guys, when they catch up to their bodies physically and they really start to add in these pass rush moves, they can just explode. Trey Hendrickson's a really nice addition for the Cincinnati Bengals moving forward. Sid and C here asked, do you think the Seahawks could get Rodney Hudson with their salary cap situation now? Trayvon, do you think Rodney Hudson would be a pretty good grab for the Seahawks, and do you think that is a possibility?
They have about, according to over the cap, they have about 17 mil. So I don't think that he would command that much money, So I think it's definitely a possibility for Seattle, considering the fact that, again, they need to commit to Russell Wilson. They need to show him that we are committed to you and we are committed to helping you in any way, shape, or form, because he's been very vocal that he's very upset with the organization and Pete Carroll as well. So if they go out and sign him, again, you didn't think that Rodney Harrison would be on the market. Now that he is, you have to strike while the iron's hot. I know we talked about the Cardinals as another possible destination because they really wanted Corey Linsley, apparently, made a strong push, but ultimately was edged out by the Chargers. So look for them to be in play as well. And I mean, a guy that people aren't talking about that much, and he's 35, but it's Alex Mack. Always have been a solid center in the NFL, whether it be with Atlanta or the Browns as well.
Yeah, definitely Alex Mack and Rodney Hudson, probably the two top centers to watch on the market at this point. Expect Seattle to make a push at one of those two guys. Alex Mack makes a lot of sense there as well. I also want to take a second to focus on the running back situation there in Seattle. Chris Carson, one of the younger free agents in this free agency class at that running back position, probably not going to be staying in Seattle. Austin, what are some possible replacements for the Seattle Seahawks? I know Leonard Fournette is a name that jumps off the page to me.
Yeah, for Seattle, I think Leonard Fournette is definitely a name to watch. There's a couple of other free agents. I think Kenyon Drake is another possibility as well. We have to kind of keep our eyes on that. I could see him being a fit. I want to go through and see if there's any other notable free agent running backs that still could be available at this point. Kenyon Drake was the other name that had popped up, but outside of that, not a ton. Duke Johnson, that seems like a very Seattle-like back. I do actually want to point our attention to Chris Carson. I don't know how much you guys have talked about him on the channel and his landing spots, but right now, I think New England's the front runner to go ahead and get a guy like Chris Carson.
Speaking of the devil, apparently Josiah just got off the phone with somebody about Chris Carson, and he says that it's a fluid situation right now. So nothing on his front, apparently. Now all I need you to do is talk about the $1 million that's about to walk through the door that's going to go to me. Because apparently you can just talk about it and it just happens. So I just need you to do that for me.
that is perfect there. A little bit speak of the devil there going on. Benjamin Goldner here says, what would be the grade for the Browns so far through free agency, and what would be your next target for Cleveland? Well, remember, they brought in John Johnson. That was an excellent signing, one of the best signings so far this offseason, in my opinion. Austin, I know you share a similar opinion there. What's your thought for a grade for the Cleveland Browns at this point?
I think that they've done really, really well, especially with the whole John Johnson. I'm not sure exactly what else they've done outside of that. What are some of the others that they've been able to pull off?
Let me pull that up right here now.
Answer, because we have had somebody asking about Patrick Peterson. Where do we think he is going to go? That's a very good question. I'm not exactly sure. I could see the New York Jets, if they wanted to become competitive quick and they signed Sherman and Patrick Peterson, I think that could be a very real possibility. The New York Jets need a lot of help at that cornerback spot, so that is a possible destination. Also, Indianapolis is another team to watch. They lost Xavier Rhodes, who is currently in free agency, and they could, go ahead and pursue Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, I also think the Las Vegas Raiders would be another a solid pick for a team or for Patrick Peterson. I think that would be a good a good short-term fit, at least for the Browns. I think John Johnson's really the most notable one at this point. But even for that alone, that's at least worth an A-. That's one of the best moves in free agency. They still have to look at they brought in Takk McKinley today too on a 1 year, $4.5 million deal. I really like that. There's high upside there on that deal as well. I'd probably have to give the Browns an A- or an A at this point. They've done absolutely phenomenal in free agency. We have that guy asking about Patrick Peterson. You would answer that, Austin. Ja here says, I do love the guys that they got so far. Probably talking about the New York Jets there. I also realize that they have great draft capital and need to save somewhat for that. And of course, they have to leave options open for the quarterback situation. Yeah, it's they're going about it slowly, but it's just there's a lot of options still on the table. And just because your team isn't acting, Super Bowls aren't ever won during the offseason period. You can say, sure, Tampa brought in Tom Brady last year, but let's not forget that there was only 2 teams even interested in Tom Brady. The Los Angeles Chargers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the only 2 teams that even really, went after him when he was on the market. Other teams were like, well, I don't know if it's worth for a 42-year-old quarterback doing that. These teams that operate slowly, they end up still doing well. This is un-New England-like what we're seeing from them. And they've been dominant for the last 20 years. And this is the first time really we've seen them do this in free agency. Just because your team's being active in free agency doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to wins during the season. KO the plug back in here again says, back again, and who do you think the Raiders should sign for defense, for cornerback, and now offensive line? And who do you think TD11 or Leonard Fournette would be a good backup for Josh Jacobs? Austin, what do you think there on that comment from KO the plug?
Yeah, so now with the Raiders, I had talked about Desmond King being a real option. Obviously, I think Dory Jackson is another option at that cornerback spot. So kind of focus your attention there. And as for offensive line, I know Villanueva is still available. Let me see if I can locate. Oh, Eric Fisher is available still. That's a name that hasn't been brought up a ton. But I think actually I found the replacement for Rodney Hudson. We could be seeing Dave Andrews from New England actually be that plug-and-play guy for the Raiders.
Most definitely. Dave Andrews, one of the other top centers. We had talked about Rodney Hudson and also Alex Mack. David Andrews probably leading the way right now in terms of the center market. Nugget Master says, just a generic question, what team do you think has done well in free agency so far, and which team has just been awful? Austin, I know you were a little cynical about the Jaguars, but I think they've kind of redeemed themselves a little bit with Shaquille Griffin today. Who's done well for you? Who has been awful so far through free agency?
Oh, wow. If you would have asked me as soon as I woke up this morning, it would have been Jacksonville very, very quickly for an answer for you. But teams that have not done very well, I'm sorry, but for all the Bears fans out there, I'm not really pumped about what happened today. I understand that they had signed Andy Dalton, but that's not a good move in my opinion. I don't think that moves the needle at all going into next year. And to be quite honest, I don't think that they've done very well as a whole. Obviously, they were aggressive in their pursuit for Russell Wilson, but I think that kind of clouded up their entire free agent, focus that they should have been having on other spots, because we knew Russell Wilson was going to be a tough ticket to really get. And ultimately, they are now out of the running for Russell Wilson, just considering that they went ahead and signed Andy Dalton. I think they just kind of figured that, there's really no chance of us acquiring him with our current assets and Seattle's current wants. A team that's done very well so far, I feel like the Chargers have done pretty well. Obviously, they got Corey Linsley, got him at the center position. I think they did very, very well in that. Also, the Chargers went after, who else did the Chargers get?
Michael Davis.
Yeah, they got Michael Davis. Yeah,
Michael Davis came back. I think that was a really good move for the Chargers in that sense. So they've done pretty well. A couple of other teams. Let me go and take a look from the group here. I think Carolina's done a nice job being patient because they are waiting for Deshaun Watson trade to open up. And the Buccaneers, I think they're actually the true winner so far in free agency. Yep. I think the ability to keep Godwin and Shaq Barrett, that's A-plus moves to me. So honestly, the Bucs are the winners in free agency thus far.
Yeah, for me, I completely agree there. GM Jason Light has done a phenomenal job keeping the band together. He got some help from Tom Brady, working those contracts into those voidable years, really playing around with cap management to the best of his ability to keep a Super Bowl winning team together. This is one of the few times that we really get to see this, where a team do with this much free agents, high-level free agents, are able to keep almost everybody together, including Rob Gronkowski today, I think the Buccaneers are for sure one of the winners of free agency. And the loser to me in free agency has got to be the Houston Texans. They made about 12 or 13 moves. And I mean, all of them have been low end, almost nothing moves to me. And I understand they're trying to, replace through their roster. Nick Caserio's putting together his guys. He brought in a lot of guys he's drafted from New England. But I mean, oh my goodness, I haven't liked what I've seen at all from them. Outside of Gruger Hill, that's their highlight for me at this point, this offseason. I'm just not loving what I'm seeing. And it's coming at a vital time. They're going to lose Deshaun Watson if they're not careful. He might put his foot in the ground, even threaten retirement if he has to. We could see something similar to what happened with Carson Palmer in Cincinnati, and that's just a nightmare situation for Houston. It's a tough era for Houston fans all around. You got the Rockets, they're struggling. Texans are going down that road too. It's not going to be a good situation. We got 140 plus people in here right now. Thank you guys all so much for the support. If you are new to Utility Sports, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing a lot more live streams, a lot of other content on the channel here covering NFL free agency, also the NFL draft. This is the place you want to be for it. Austin, I'm going to be handing the stream over to you here to keep it rolling at this point. I'm going to turn off the banner here to this guy. And there you go, Austin. This is going to be your show now. Here you go.
All right, perfect. Trayvon, thank you for staying in with me here today. Let's go ahead and get to some of the comments. I do appreciate everybody that has been saying that this is their new favorite channel. We've worked really hard to build this up over the last couple of months. It's been a grind pushing out videos every single day. Really do appreciate every single one of you. We've worked very hard. I also really encourage you guys to go look through some of our playlists. We've made an NFL draft playlist, NFL content playlist. There's a lot of different good stuff that you can see that we've produced in the past. So any predictions for the Jags moves moving forward? I think Jacksonville is going to be in the market for another tight end. So they will be kind of looking at like a Gerald Everett. I think that's a very real and possible move at this point. Trayvon, any predictions for you on the Jacksonville front?
Well, I mean, you really think about it, they addressed their wide receiver position already. So they might add another wide receiver or two. You never know. I think tight end is obviously still an option. I think that you guys did sign a tight end, but you can never sign enough. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that there are still options out there as well. I don't know if they'll maybe go for a secondary, maybe a safety. No, excuse me, you got Deshaun Jenkins for that. So I think that maybe just trying to smooth out the edges of the roster before the draft, so that way you really go into it just thinking that you have the best team possible around Trevor Lawrence. Maybe an offensive lineman. Because again, you're about to get Trevor Lawrence. It's not a bad idea to invest in the O-line now and in the draft as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I'm going to kind of go through some of the comments here. Thanks again. You guys have been awesome hitting the comment section, letting us know what you want to hear about. There was a comment, Trayvon, about the Chargers needing to add another edge rusher, which I do agree with. Do you think that should be done through free agency or the draft?
Well, it all just depends on the money's right and where the dominoes fall. I think that a big person that I wanted was Leonard Floyd, but ultimately getting outpriced in that regard for him. But I mean, there's still some players. Let me pull up. I think Hassan Reddick is an option. I think that he would be very good for us. I believe. Excuse me, let me just pull it up. Jadeveon Clowney might be a good option. If we would like to elect a veteran like Justin Houston, would also be really good for us as well. There's a couple different options that we have. I think that it's extremely important, obviously, for us to get a new. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if it cut out. I think it's extremely important for us to get another edge. I don't really like the edges in the draft. So I think that we have to adjust in the free agency. We're really crossing our fingers and hoping that Von Miller wouldn't get picked up, but he did, sadly. And we're out of the running for him. Obviously, he stays in Denver, but there's still some quality. Everson Griffin might be interesting. Another name that somebody reached out and said to me was Solomon Thomas, who's super young and he'd be able to develop with Joey Bosa. I think that'd be very scary front as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting name. I've heard Solomon Thomas's name being, float around, and I'm kind of interested to see what happens with him because obviously a trade would have to be leveraged. Kind of curious on what the comp would look like at that point. And Craig Smith just said he'd rather have a developmental rotational guy in the third round for the Chargers. So obviously, I mean, if they kind of swing and miss in free agency, I don't think they need to reach in the NFL draft. I think, third round would be a fair time for the Chargers to go ahead and do that. But there's a couple of very solid free agents, like you had mentioned, guys like Reddick, also Everson Griffin could be a very good option for them. That's kind of the lower cost bracket as well. So I really like the Solomon Thomas fit if, the Chargers are able to kind of figure out the comp for that.
Yeah. Sheldon's a clown. He's just in the comments just being a clown.
Absolutely.
But yes, no, like I definitely think that it's gonna be interesting for sure. I know Craig is I see him on Twitter a lot. Like we interact on Chargers Twitter, so I know exactly who he is. But I don't like I said, I personally do not like the edges in the draft. I just personally don't. I'd rather us just get a veteran, and we still have Uchenna Nwosu, and we still have Jerry Tillery. That we might want to switch to defensive end given a new scheme because Linval is very clearly going to be their starting defensive tackle. I think it's interesting that we haven't restructured anybody, and it's kind of frustrating in that regard because I think that we could re-up a lot more money and be open to a lot more free agency options, Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to sit down with Joey and just overload a lot of it into signing bonus and Keenan as well, given the fact that they just signed new deals or even Brian Bulaga, But
right.
We'll see. There's still time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. I also want to talk about Rodney Hudson. There has been quite a few questions in the chat. Mr. Midnight asked, where do you think that Rodney Hudson will ultimately land? I think a team that's not being talked enough about in that stance is Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they could replace Ted Karras with him. So I think Hudson, you can slot in at that center spot, protect Tua in that way. So ultimately, Miami could kind of revamp that line, sign Hudson, draft Sewell. It really depends on what direction that they want to go and the confidence that they have in him. We have a comment asking about Dory Jackson possibly to the Cowboys. I would like that. That is a high upside signing for the Cowboys if they are able to pull that off. So very, very interesting kind of conversational piece for that. The Jets tanked on a tank, and the Jakes are the ultimate tankers. That's actually a fact, though. The Jakes know how to tank best. Obviously, I think it's really, really interesting how this is going to play out because Jacksonville is going to end up with Lawrence, and then the Jets are a big pivotal spot in the draft at 2. Are they going to draft a quarterback and go Zach Wilson? Are they going to trade down with a team like Carolina? It really kind of all depends on what happens also with Deshaun Watson. That very well could play into what happens in the top 10 of the NFL draft. Look at some of the other comments here. Justin Hardy is going to be that third or fourth corner. I think very, very likely that fourth corner. He is really, really fast. That is what I know from Justin Hardy. He's an extremely fast corner. Obviously, his career really hasn't panned out the way he's been hoping it to be. But Justin Hardy, good depth piece for the Jets. And I don't have the money on Justin Hardy. Trayvon, have you seen any of the contract details for him?
I have not, but as soon as I do, I'll definitely let you know, of course.
Okay, great. Washington football team, we've had quite a few questions about them. Let's go ahead and take a look at the over the cap. Where do they currently sit with the cap? $37 million. That is enough. Both of us think that Kenny Golladay would be a great signing for the Washington football team. So I think you could kind of look at Kenny Golladay as potentially being, anywhere from $12 to $15 million on the open market. Washington, I think, is a phenomenal fit for him. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is another guy that they could consider at the wide receiver position. I think they would have a preference towards Golladay, though, just considering that I think he would play better alongside of a guy like Terry McLaurin. Other possible landing spots for Juju, Trayvon, where do you want to see him end up?
My hot take of the day was I said that he might land with the Chargers because I don't know if you know, but he was kind of joking before free agency started that he wanted to go to LA or whatever the case may be. I don't know if it was joking or actually joking on stream with I think it was one of the Charger players. I'm not too sure, but when you look at it, I think the Jets are still a possibility. Him and Corey Davis would be very good. I think that he needs to go somewhere. Personally, if I was him, I would go somewhere that has an established number one receiver already, because we've seen him in a number one receiver role, and I'm not saying that he's not the best. I think he's more of like best suited for a number two role. That's when we saw him thrive. That's when we saw him be the Juju that we know he can be. So I think that if he goes to a team that has a solid number one already, maybe like a Washington again. I think Washington needs to get one of the two bigger wide receivers. So if he can go there, that would be perfect for him, because Terry will take a lot of the pressure off of him and he can just shine, or vice versa. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be really, really good. And talking about Juju in that number one role, he's not, to me, not a true number one wide receiver. I think there's going to be a lot of people that disagree, and it's okay to say that. I think a lot of people will have varying opinions on that, but I think he is one of the best number two receivers in the league if you have him as a number two, if not the best. Very, very productive wide receiver out of the slot. He's a really tough guy over the middle. He will take a hit and still hold on to the ball over the middle. He's absolutely fearless in that sense. That's why it is worth going and getting a Juju Smith-Schuster. The one thing that people worry about is his TikTok dances and disrespecting other players with that, dancing on their logos. I expect that to kind of stop, and I don't think that's going to at all prevent a team from signing him. No,
he's not really a distraction. I mean, he's a distraction to a degree, but he's not really he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything outrageous. He's not Antonio Brown.
Right. Yep. And that is how people have kind of acted about Juju at this point, is he has turned into Antonio Brown. I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I just think he kind of took the TikTok thing a little bit too far. And then, some people were mad, and then all of a sudden they went on their skid, and people blame Juju for that. Once again, I don't think that's right in saying that either. But let's see if Juju plays against the Bengals. Yeah, that's very, very funny. Terryson is the number one. Galladay would take targets. Yes. Kenny Galladay would take targets away from Terry McLaurin, but they very well could coexist in an offense, in my opinion. Two stud receivers for whoever the next quarterback of the Washington football team is. It's going to be, Ryan Fitzpatrick for a year, and then whoever they draft at this point. I think that Washington's in a really good position. I know, Trayvon, you feel pretty positive about their future, especially with that defense. That defensive front is a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, easily. I think it's one of the best in the league, if not the best. And they've shown it, like I said before, they gave Tom Brady some real problems in the playoffs even, Like I said, all I need is a competent quarterback, and I think that team is clearly the best team in that division. I expect them to win the division next year. And again, having Ryan Fitzpatrick just now further solidifies that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's pretty interesting to see, where the whole Washington situation goes. I don't think a lot of people were expecting Fitzpatrick actually to wind up there. I think that kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, me myself included, for sure. Yes, for Dedrick, they're saying that he thinks Juju fits better with Terry. I totally get that. I think that the both of them, could coexist in an offense easily as well. So for me personally, if you're Washington, you're happy, honestly, with either signing. So I'm really proud of what Washington's been able to do. Obviously, they've had the whole name debacle. They've had a lot of distraction there, but Ron Rivera going in there was a great, great thing for that team. He really brought accountability to that locker room. And that's why we saw them, successful this year. And I think they're going to take strides moving forward. Let's look. The number one free agent is Trent Williams. Where will he land? I don't know about you, Trayvon, but I see Trent Williams staying in San Francisco, and I'm pretty sure on that. Where do you kind of sit on that front?
I see him staying in San Francisco. I think that, I don't know if you know, but we heard earlier that there was a deal on the table for him for 4 years, $80 million. So I definitely think that he's on. I think the only people that can outbid them are the Colts in that regard, because he wants to go to a contender. It's very clear and obvious. But I think that he ultimately will stay in San Francisco. I think if he doesn't stay in San Francisco, then I'd be extremely upset if I was the Niners, obviously. But you look towards the draft, and you have options still there at the tackle position. I think they're in a good spot to pick up Rashawn Slater, maybe, if he's still available, and slides down boards as well.
Mm-hmm. We have an NFL trade. We have some breaking news. The Bills are moving on from tight end Lee Smith to the Atlanta Falcons for a 2022 late round pick. Very well could see that just being a 7th round pick. For me personally, Lee Smith is a very, very good run blocker, huge body. This is definitely a guy that will get after it in the run game. So I kind of like this for both sides. I think it makes sense for the Bills to move on from Lee Smith finally here. Once again, that is some breaking news. Lee Smith to Atlanta. So we'll continue to monitor that situation as well. Have you seen any other transactions yet to this point that you've noticed?
I have not. But obviously, if I see something, that will. I'll let you know.
Okay,
of course.
Great stuff. Let's kind of get to some of the final questions here. Is Tua ready to be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins, or will he develop behind Brissett? Trayvon, I know you feel very passionate about Tua. Do you think he is the starting quarterback this season?
I think that he goes into it, the starting quarterback, and then whether he keeps that is up to him, basically. I think that the reason why they got Jacoby is just another insurance policy in case he can't get it together. I think that I think that a lot of people are pretty harsh on Tua, the fact that he didn't have OTAs, rookie training camp, and things like that. And just because people saw what Herbert did, they expected him to do the same, I guess, because he was taken before him. But that doesn't happen. What Herbert did, that does not happen. You know what I mean? It's very unprecedented. It's very rare, obviously. And I think that giving him a full season, a full off season with the team, he knows the scheme, he knows what he has to do, and also helping him, help him as well, surround him with more weapons. I think that, their third pick should be used to help him any way, shape, or form, whether that's keeping him upright with Penei Sewell, or that's going and getting Jamar Chase, another big-bodied weapon for him to throw the ball to.
Absolutely. And I'm going to kind of go rapid fire through some of these other questions as well. Where do you think Clowney's going to go? Clowney, that's a tough name to pin down and figure out.
I'd say the Browns.
I think the Browns are a good fit. So I'm going to go with the Browns on that. Do you think the Packers will get Will Fuller? I think they're going to have to do some restructuring because I don't know, what money they're going to have. They're going to have to figure out something. I don't know if the Packers will have that cash to go ahead and get him. But if they get that verbal commitment from him that he wants to come, they'll do what they can to ultimately free up that money. We also have Chiefs in talks with Kyle Long. That's a big development. If they're able to get Kyle Long, watch out. Kansas City's guards will be, absolutely replenished. Is Odell Beckham Jr. going to be traded? And if yes, what team? I could see New England going after Odell Beckham Jr. to get that true number one wideout for Cam Newton. I think that is a very likely landing spot. Or once again, some of those other teams we've talked about, Washington. We've also talked about the Jets and possibly Jacksonville if they wanted to go out that far. Also, what's up with the Raiders locker room? Haven't been hearing a lot on that. Trayvon, have you heard anything about the Raiders locker room?
I have not. There was something floating around that, they think that Rodney Hudson asked for his release. I'm not sure any truth or legitimacy to that.
Cool. Okay, we do have something interesting from Dakota from a trusted source. The Bills are trading Lee to the Falcons, making room for Zach Ertz. If that is the case, that is a humongous move for the Buffalo Bills. So let's go ahead and kind of monitor that situation. Ronald Darby got paid. Yes, he did. That $10 million. Very, very expensive for a guy like Ronald Darby. Does anybody want Darnold? I think the Texans would be in on that. I think Washington would be in on that as well. At this point, I think the market's still pretty open for Sam Darnold. I think he still will get dealt at this point. So Trayvon, you're going to have to kind of man the ship for a second here. I have to log in and then end the stream. So if you want to just go ahead and talk here.
Yeah, sure, of course. What do you think about the Jaguars? Hall, I think the Jaguars have done a good job addressing their needs. They got a lot of defense and they got their secondary mainly, so that's really good in their regard. The Bengals signed 2 players. Now they're silent. Yeah, I mean, hey, man, like, I think that you guys are going to be doing a lot of damage during the draft, and I think that's where you should. Don't just because it's hard when you see other teams spending money and you wish that was your team, but at the same time, like, you guys have done a pretty good approach to building up your team. I think Darnell Mitchell will probably be backups at this point. I think that Sam Darnold gets another chance depending on where he goes. I think that he can be a much better quarterback than we've seen so far. What do you think of the Jets running back situation? I don't know. It's super, super hard. It's super hard to figure out. They obviously out of Le'Veon Bell. There's still quality backs out there, though. I think there's a couple, and let me pull up right now. Running backs update. There's Todd Gurley, Duke Johnson, Tevin Coleman, James White, Matt Breida, Damian Williams, Leonard Fournette, T.J. Yeldon, Chris Thompson, Jeremy McKinnon. There's a couple names that they can easily go towards. Hey, what's up, Froggy? What do you guys think of the Pats so far? I think that they've had a pretty good free agency. I'm really upset with them, so don't ask me that question. They got Hunter Henry, so I'm pretty upset. It looks like another rebuild. Cheddar. I don't really understand like what team you mean, buddy. If you just let me know, I'll definitely answer that. Any chance the Jaguars have a brain fart and pass on Lawrence with the number 1 pick? I don't think that's possible. I mean, if that happens, Urban Meyer's out the door that night. And RG3 next home. I didn't even know he was a free agent. Well, I think that he should just stay with the Ravens. That's a team that fits him very well and fits him and Lamar Jackson obviously have similar play styles in their regard. 0 chance at Sal. Yeah, exactly. 0 chance. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are going to conclude the stream here. Once again, thanks again, everybody. Subscribe right now if you haven't. If you're in the stream, go ahead and subscribe. We want you around for more content. We will continue to push out more and more content as free agency progresses. We plan on going live again, so make sure you make it, and we can't wait to see you guys in our next videos.